Everyone, you're listening to New Slang. I'm music journalist Thomas Mooney, and we kick off the week with episode 112, where I am joined by singer-songwriter Jesse Dayton. I caught up with Jesse just the other day. He's been super busy these past few months. He just released Gulf Coast Sessions, a project where he essentially plays every single instrument and self-produced. It's a fun little escape type of EP album. That's a bit of a nice pause from the seriousness and all of the dread that's taking up our lives in 2020. It's perfect for summer hangs by the pool or grill, go driving around by yourself, let the windows roll down, that kind of thing. He's also been finishing up a new book. It's memoir style, and he goes into these backstories of his career. He's always been one of these guys who has these encounters with these larger-than-life people or these musical heroes. And with this memoir, he's kind of giving you all the context of how he arrived at that spot. Now, obviously, part of the reason why Jesse's been able to brush shoulders with so many icons over the years is in part due to his talent as a guitar player and as a songwriter, and then also due to this really cool dynamic style that he's created. But he'd be also the first to admit as well that so much of this has to do with just kind of being in the right place at the right time and meeting the right person. And then what I think is probably the biggest thing, just always being up for whatever. During this interview, he talks about some of those encounters with people like Waylon Jennings and Johnny Cash, the great LA punk band X, Kris Kristofferson, and a few others. It's always about these guys kind of hearing about him or coming across a record or seeing him on TV or something. Of course, when someone super famous or a legend, if you will, reaches out, it's always an important and meaningful event in your life. But before the age of DMs, cell phones, and email and whatnot, they really had to kind of like work to get in touch with you. You know what I mean? Things were so much more intentional back then. And that's what I find so fascinating is like Waylon Jennings seeing Jesse on TV and being like, yeah, I need to know that guy. Anyway, I really love talking with Jesse about songwriting and writing in general, hearing those stories, and then being able to see what he's been doing to keep himself busy in 2020. Today's presenting sponsor is Desert Door Texas Sotol. If you know anything about me, it's probably that I'm from the heart of West Texas and absolutely love everything about West Texas. And that's really why I love Desert Door so much. You may be asking yourself what exactly sotol is. Well, it's a premium spirit that's similar to a tequila or a mezcal. But for my money, it's a little bit more refined and smooth. There's a sweetness and faint hints of vanilla and citrus. And it's also as versatile as your garden variety vodka. At its core, Desert Door is authentically West Texas. They go out and harvest sotol plants from the wild and bring them back to their distillery over in Driftwood, Texas. So next time you're at your local liquor store, get a bottle of Desert Door. For more info, check this episode's show notes. If this is your first time listening to New Slang, I strongly suggest hitting that subscribe link. If you just did, I'm giving you a virtual high five right now. New Slang is over on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, and basically any and everywhere you listen to podcasts. Go check out the New Slang merch store, grab a koozie, some stickers, buttons, and magnets. Any bit helps. I'll throw a link into the show notes. And if you're into playlists, go check out Tom Mooney's Cup of Coffee and the Neon Eon playlists over on Spotify. The Neon Eon is for all your nostalgic 90s country needs, which there's going to be more Neon Eon related stuff coming your way pretty soon. And then Tom Mooney's Cup of Coffee is a regularly updated mix of new Americana and country music. It's also a really great hint at who I have coming up on the podcast. So yeah, go follow those. All right, enough rambling for this intro. Here's Jesse Dayton. Yeah, man, you just released this Gulf Coast Sessions, and it feels like it's kind of meant to be like a mood breaker for 2020 in a way. This year's been so intense and so serious and stressful, and this feels kind of like an escape project in a way.
Totally. Totally. I mean, I even created a different character in the vocal booth, which doesn't even, sound like any of the vocals on any of my other records, but it was total escapism. And, it's kind of a love letter to where I grew up, the Texas-Louisiana border, and Cajun influence, and the East Texas blues and the rhythm and blues and gospel and country and all that kind of stuff, New Orleans, and going there when I was a little kid, and all those kind of shenanigans. But yeah, I think we could all use a party record right now, man.
I know, like it's one of those things where we've all been inside so long, or some of us have.
Yeah.
Some are not doing that, but
Yeah.
it very much felt like, oh, I got to put this on just to escape the monotony of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting how you grew up on I-10 and I grew up on I-10 on the other side of the state. And like, we both get like these totally different feelings out of I-10. Like I-10 for me was so much of a way to get out of town, like, and that's all like 3 hours away, no matter where you're going. And it feels like that was so much more of a, where you're able to like just go down the road and really pick up some culture, some real, obviously New Orleans and Houston and is that what you felt like? Is that what I-10's so much for you?
I mean, absolutely. And, I have a lot of heroes from Lubbock, and I get the whole West Texas, you could see it, stand on a dime, see 1,000 miles further. And people have, big, broad landscape cinematographic type art out there. And it's amazing. I get it, I mean, I'm an old Texas family, so I know it. But I grew up in a really weird little bubble in Texas. And, Beaumont is just nestled right there next to Galveston. So, I'm 15 minutes from the beach. I'm 15 minutes from Louisiana border. I grew up with a ton of Cajuns, a bunch of Catholics, which is kind of weird for Texas unless you get off into the, Latino, valley. And, and it was just a weird, it was an awesome place. I mean, to grow up, I couldn't wait to get out. I mean, when I was a kid, I was like, if I can ever move to Austin and make a living playing guitar, that'll be good enough for me. Which is what I did. But, I mean, it was amazing. I mean, I grew up going to Zydeco festivals, and, I saw George Jones and Conway Twitty all the time. I saw every major country and Western star would come to this place called the Palace. And I mean, for like $10, you could go see David Allan Coe, Johnny Paycheck, and Bo Cephas all on the same bill for $10. And of course, I didn't want to wear my rock and roll shirt because there's a lot of rednecks there, and you might get, somebody might pull a buck knife on you or something.
Yeah.
But, I had this old African-American woman who lived with my family named Miss Victoria. And so I got turned on to a lot of cool blues and Zydeco and gospel music when I was a little bitty kid. So, that played a big part in everything.
Yeah. I think one of the important things for, I guess, like for artists is that, or for, I guess, storytelling more so, is you're around these people, these characters, these stories, but it takes a certain kind of person to be able to translate those stories into something that is digestible for the public. And it feels like you've done that so much in your career. You've been around these, a lot of like, just these characters, these hardworking blue collar people, and you've been able to like translate their stories into, obviously mostly into song.
Right.
What do you think that, have you ever thought about that as far as like being a translator of sorts?
Oh yeah, I mean, I just finished a book. I wrote this book for DeCapo Publishing,
Hmm.
Hatchet the Publishing, and it's a great publishing house. And I was surprised that I got the deal. But it's full, it's all the memoirs of my like behind the scenes stuff. So it's not just about playing with Waylon Jennings or Johnny Cash or whoever it was I was playing with, X or Super Suckers or whoever it was. It was about what was going on in my life and all these characters that were coming and going in and out of my life, whether they were crazy uncles or some guy that I was renting a place from, or some broke ass guitar player who was brilliant that nobody knew about or cared about, which does happen more so than the other way,
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, man. And I think, if you look at a lot of the really cool songwriters, whether it's Springsteen or Willie Nelson or Towns Van Zandt or whoever it is, they always have these characters in their songs,
Hmm. I was going to ask about you writing that book. Obviously, it seems like right now, being stuck at the house, were you able to like get so much of that work done
Yeah.
in the last few months?
Yeah, absolutely. I finished it, man. A 75,000 word book, and they don't want me to write anymore because they're doing like, editing and punching it up. And I'm sure I'll have a few rewrites to do, but I kind of miss it right now, to tell you the truth, because I could just go out to my studio in my backyard here in South Austin and just go out there and write every day. And, I'm a pretty disciplined guy. I mean, music and writing and film and all the stuff that I do is just, you have to be a self-starter, and you have to wake up every morning and just put on your tool belt and either fill up a few pages or write a song or do whatever you have to do. You don't come up with ideas and then somebody calls you at the very beginning and says, I want to give you every bit of money that you need to make that. That's not the way it works.
Right.
And if you write one script and you go to LA and you think it's the best thing ever, the first thing they're going to say is, yeah, it's okay. You got anything else?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a lot of self-starting on this work and songs and writing and script stuff and all the stuff that I've done,
Yeah. It seems like what I've always told people on the journalist side, writing wise, is, you're not going to be good at the beginning, obviously. That should be a given, but you need to it's that whole 10,000 hour thing or 100,000, whatever that number
Absolutely.
is. But yeah, it's you have to. What I've tried to tell other people is you have to. It's just the practice aspect. You have to getting into the routine of it. So when you do have those stories, whenever you do have the opportunity, you don't have to worry about the actual writing part. You can just get into it. And
absolutely, dude. That's the whole deal. I mean, one mediocre song gets you to a great song. One not so great story gets you to another decent story, passable. Then you get great if you're lucky. And then, all I do all day is I fill my phone with just ideas. And I'm fixing to start writing another record, which will be like kind of a big, this record I just released was just a little small record that I played all the instruments on and made it at my buddy's house. And it was just fun. And it was a little bridge record to keep me and my listeners sane until I put out my next big record. But the next big record is, I've got, so many ideas that I need to sit down and start focusing on. And it's a process, and it's great. It used to make me nervous. I used to, when I was younger, I'd be like, what if I don't, have anything? Well, if I don't have anything, I just get up and go do something else.
Right.
Go ride my motorcycle or, it's not happening today. So I don't force it.
Yeah. Going back to the book thing, how different is it from what are you using different parts of your brain, different parts of your creative outlet? How different is it from sitting down to start a record, write a record, or write a screenplay? Was there a learning curve on that part?
I mean, there kind of was, but I've always been a writer. Like I was a screenwriter. I've written, about 5 screenplays, and I licensed one and I sold another one. Just was kind of after. Well, I'd written a play before I met Rob Zombie, but when I met Rob Zombie, I made movies with him, and I had a lot of free time during the day, so I would just write, 2 or 3 pages a day, and then, in 40 days, I'd have a 120-page script, which is about, an hour and a half, movie. There's I have a really great editor, Ben Schaefer, who's helping me with this book. But the book's really like memoir stuff. So all these processes are different because, if it's a memoir thing and it's memory, it's what's going on with me, what was happening in my career, what was happening personally, what was happening in the country, what was happening with my friends, what was happening in the world. I mean, there's a lot of questions you want to ask yourself, Mm-hmm. When I'm, in Los Angeles, recording with Glenn Campbell or whatever, there's a lot of other stuff going on in the world that kind of can make that interesting. But when I write songs usually, sometimes I get the melody first and I don't have any words to it. And there'll be something that I just stumble onto on my guitar or something I sing in my head, and I'll just record it in my phone. And then sometimes, it'll be just a sing or, I was sitting in a bar one night outside of Houston in Clear Lake, Texas, at this place called the Turtle Bar. It's just a total redneck dive. And there's 2 big old bubbas, at the bar, just, classic Texas beer gut bubbas, working class dudes. And, and I'm just trying to get out of the house. I'm not even meeting anybody there. I guess they were both in construction, and one goes, what are you going to do tonight? And the other one goes, I'm going to go stay at home getting hammered. And the other one goes, well, she's out getting nailed. And I was like, oh my God, that's just like some Shakespearean white trash, poetry. So I ran out to my car, my truck actually, and I grabbed a Whataburger bag and I put, I'm at home getting hammered while she's out getting nailed. And then that song, which was a stupid little song that I wrote, that's about 2.5 minutes long, has like 2 chords in the whole song, ended up in a movie, and hell, it helped me, put a down payment on a house.
Right. Yeah. But see, that's what I mean by being able to be a translator, being like those guys right there. They've probably said a million things like that, but you being present and being, having like the self-awareness or the awareness in general, going, oh, I need to take that and do something with it. That's, I think that's like as much as like songwriters talk or sing, it's almost more so how much y'all listen.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the guys who don't write songs but have the ear to find really hooky, great songs. Like George Jones and Elvis Presley never wrote songs.
Right.
But they could pick great songs. Yeah. And, just being aware of your what people are saying. I mean, I went back in, those two Bubbas didn't say, I didn't try to glean it, something else off of them. The rest of the night was pretty much a bunch of stupid shit, but they knocked it out of the park then, you know.
Right.
They made it on the soundtrack for a movie that sold really well. And but it's not always just what people say, you know. Sometimes it's something that I think, or,
right,
you know, there's 1,000 ways to get it, man. Sometimes it's in a book, or it's something somebody said on TV, or I don't know, you know. You have to be aware.
I wanted to talk to y'all one more time about our new partners at Desert Door and offer up a handful of my favorite ways to drink it. Get you a Mexican Coca-Cola, have a couple of swigs, then pour yourself some Desert Door Oak aged in, toss in a lime wedge or two, or how about this? Pour some Desert Door into a mug, top off the glass with some ginger beer, squeeze in a lime, or for all you ranch water drinkers out there, get you a Topo Chico, take a couple of pulls off, and then pour in some Desert Door. Toss in a couple of lime wedges, and now you have a mighty tasty and refreshing ranch water. Remember, sotol is as versatile as vodka and has a more refined, smooth, and a more complex palate than tequila. It's rich and balanced, and whatever your go-to drink is, it'll make it that much better. And again, it's inherently West Texas. It tastes like home. For more info on Desert Door, check our show notes. All right, that's it for Thomas Mooney's Cocktail Minute. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, you know, I have this written down for later, but I think like we're already kind of talking about it. That's one of the things that I think sticks out most in your songwriting. Of course, like I always love the storytelling and like the emotional expression of a song and everything. But I think like my favorite part is whenever you're able to like stretch language to fit something.
Yeah.
And I think like people don't really think about language that way, but like the English language is very, very versatile and very like there's a lot of ways you can say something.
Very elastic.
Very elastic. Yeah. And you mix these like idioms and these like new expressions and the old slang and new slang and made up stuff and make it into, like modern American language. And I think like that is so, that's probably like my favorite part of listening to songs is listening to how a storyteller tells the song or tells the story.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've never met, most songwriters kind of are poets,
mm-hmm.
And when you use words like poets and artists, people like get a little weird because it sounds pretentious.
Right.
But the bottom line is, dude, is that if you make shit up out of thin air and you create it into a song or a piece of whatever, and then enough people buy it to where you can pay your rent or your mortgage and not have a day job whatsoever, then you're an artist. That's what you do. Even if you're a pandering bullshit artist, even if you're just like, well, I'm going to go over all these people who, love Robert Earl Keen, and I'm going to write some songs that sound just like Robert Earl Keen, and I'm going to dress like them, and they're going to love me. And you know what? They probably will.
Yeah.
But it won't be as awesome as Robert Earl Keen. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Which is, I always tell people all the time, be yourself because everyone else is taken, like one of the great things about getting older is for me is I know who I am now. And I don't want to be these other people that I love. I admire them, but everyone's journey is so unique,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's one of those things where I think so many young songwriters, or just when you're young in general, it doesn't even have to be a songwriter. So much of it is like you're trying to be cool.
Yeah.
And like at some point, you start realizing, being cool is just being yourself. Like
Absolutely.
it's so hard to try and be cool all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, that's a real loaded term, being cool.
Right.
And, I'm proud of the stuff that I did when I was young, and, I got to learn more than just some Eagles songbook chords, cowboy chords, and I got to learn some sophisticated stuff. And, I didn't have the same style as a lot of the guys who were hitting it bigger, and they were hitting it quicker, and I've had this real weird career where I've just been a total outsider on pretty much every genre. But I've gotten to play with a lot of great people because of that.
Right.
And, I got to play country stuff and rock stuff and punk rock stuff and jazz music and Western swing and rockabilly. And I got to play, reggae and all kinds of stuff. I mean, on like real big recordings, you know what I mean? That were like of some note, and I think that is kind of the payoff, because I never felt just like a country guy, even though I was from Beaumont and, I could sing like George Jones, I could do that. And I could have moved to Nashville and put a hat on and been like those other guys from Beaumont. But man, I just thought it was so goofy, and I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. But I think after a while, everybody kind of figures out their own path. And yeah, at first, you do think about like who you're going to mimic. And, George Jones used to mimic Hank Williams.
Yeah.
He used to mimic Lefty Frizzell from Waxahachie, Texas. And my dad went to high school with George Jones in Beaumont. And, it took him a while to figure out who he was. But if you listen to Lefty Frizzell, the way he does those twirls in his voice, always late, all that stuff. And then you listen to Hank Williams, the way he kind of breaks his voice. It's like Jones is like a perfect combination of those two, but nobody thinks about it because he turned out to be the greatest country singer of all time. So,
Yeah. Like it's not the same thing as like the vocal runs, but it's kind of that little bit of, and the similar, like, with like Buddy Holly kind of doing the hiccupy kind of thing.
Yeah. Big. That was a big deal, man. That's I'm a huge Buddy Holly fan, but that's the way a young guy would sing. And I think Joe Ely was telling me one time that he thought that Buddy Holly's whole entire recording career only lasted 18 months before the plane went down. Yeah. But how many people started doing that hiccup voice? It was like,
that's what so like all those people from the 50s or the 40s or what's so amazing to me is like how innovative they were in the recording process, and like how they were, like if you think about with Buddy, they were like capturing natural reverb in the studio. They didn't really know that's what they were doing, but that's what they thought was cool, We're like, oh, that's
they had to.
And so
they
like
had
that,
to, and it's still to this day, man. Like, there's nothing better than getting a bunch of guys in a room and just banging it out live. Yeah, you might have to recut some vocals or tweak some stuff or whatever, but you can really genuinely hear the difference,
Right. Yeah. The one thing I was going to ask you about, going back to like the memoir stuff, was obviously back in the day when you're getting these calls from people, even just like from Rob Zombie, which is not too far back. It's one of those, people had to like call you on the phone or like reach out that way. Now, like you can be more verified, I guess, today via Twitter.
Yeah, sure.
Or like email or whatever.
Yeah.
What was that like, I guess, back then, not necessarily knowing if this is actually, Waylon Jennings on the phone or whoever?
Well, I mean, it's really different. All this stuff comes different ways. Like last year I played on Duff McKagan's record from Guns N' Roses, right? And a lot of people don't know that Duff co-wrote Sweet Child of Mine. He co-wrote like all these huge hits. And he has always been the guy in the band who sang one or two songs during the show. So, but I got in touch with, Shooter Jennings called me about that because Shooter was producing the record. But like I met Shooter. This is what's so cool about Shooter is I met Shooter when he was in high school and I was playing with his dad in Nashville, and Shooter had a Marilyn Manson t-shirt on. And now Shooter just produced the new Marilyn Manson record.
Right. Yeah.
Which is crazy, which it doesn't matter if you like Marilyn Manson or not. He sold a gazillion records. He's not losing any sleep over whether you like him or not.
Yeah.
It's just cool that Shooter's been a fan his whole life. And now he's working with some guy that, he used to listen to in high school. But back in the day, it would come usually from producers or they would see me, and I was on this real kind of square country show called Crook and Chase one time. And it was in Nashville, and it was real it reminded me of like Christian broadcasting station. The woman had they were super nice and whatever. And, I wasn't the dance hall guy. I was hanging out at the Continental Club, and I had a leather jacket and,
right.
That I was part of that Austin scene, and so I got there and hey man, I'm from Beaumont, I'm nice to everybody. But I was like, I don't think they're going to really get what I'm doing. And anyway, Kris Kristofferson was on the show that night, and we had the same publicist because this publicist had come into Austin and seen me and said, you sound too weak, I can't get you on the radio, but I can get you on TV. So she got me on TV. I drove my truck up there. It's so cliched. And I meet Kris. And Kris goes out on stage and goes, hey, what about that kid from Beaumont? And afterwards, we went out and to this town car. And he took me to the Gibson Guitar Factory at like 11 o'clock at night. And we would burn one together. And we talked about books and and then he took off that night, and I was like, oh, great. That was a big night. That was a big night in Nashville for me. And I'll just wake up and go back home in the morning. So the next morning, my phone rang in my hotel, and he said, hey, Hoss, I saw you on TV last night, Kris. And it was Waylon. And he said, you want to come over and pick some guitar for me? And I said, absolutely. So I drove over there, and a lot of it's on YouTube because there was a film crew following him around. But I knocked on the door, and Johnny Cash opened the door and said, you going to stand there with your mouth open or come in and play that thing? And it was a whole thing, and so once I played with Waylon and I got to passed around and played on a bunch of their tracks. Sometimes they were there, sometimes they weren't. I got to play on some Willie stuff and just a bunch of people, Ray Price, Johnny Bush. I mean, a lot of old timers, which I thought was the coolest thing ever. But most people my age were like trying to do this Brent Mason telly-pop, and Brent Mason's a brilliant guitar player. I don't mean that anything, but they were all thinking like the hit songs of the day, and people still think like that today.
Right.
But it was cool, man. And it opened all kinds of doors for me. And, I got to go play with some big rock bands and do some different stuff. And they all kind of found out about me in different ways. It's so different now. It's, everything's, it's just a different thing. It's not worse. I will say I don't think it's quite as cool because the market's kind of flooded with people who are just trying to be famous. Yeah. Instead of real natural songwriter, natural guitar player, natural musicians who, it's a calling,
Right. Yeah. That's the thing about modern, I guess, the ability to make music in the modern era is that anyone can make it, but then also at the same time, you can make your own record. Like obviously you can just put out a record yourself. Yeah. You can record it, self-record it, all that kind of stuff. You can get the technology and do a record in your bedroom. Yeah. But also, there is that oversaturation of just anytime my go-to example is Netflix. Like whenever I open up Netflix, I almost never watch anything because I'm just it's just so much stuff. I don't know what looking through it. And you're like, oh my, like, what do I just spent 30 minutes just looking through it. I'll just go turn it off and put something else on.
Dude, I'm the same way. I mean, I'm just looking. I mean, it's just, you're overwhelmed with so much. And, let's be honest, man. These business people, they all get in a room and they're all marketing people, and they might have had some success. They might have found some guy who sounds stone cold original and, whatever. But it's just not as cool as it used to be. And there's nothing that's ever going to change my mind that there is. Like I said, now with the advent of social media and these numbers that likes and all that kind of stuff, there's so much emphasis on becoming famous that, I rarely see anybody who just knocks me out. I still do. There's still some young musicians who knock me out, but it's as rare as it always was. Put it that way. No matter how much the market's been flooded with mediocrity and, and there's also seems to be a thing now to where like, people want to circumvent or sidestep the work. Right. I hear that constantly. I'm like, dude, you have to go to Des Moines 12 times and play for the fucking bartender. Yeah. Until people start showing up. And then when 200 people show up on a Tuesday night, then you should just be happy that happened. Yeah. And if you get lucky and you win the lottery and you write, a song that everybody just freaks out and, you get like some movie or whatever it is to turn, some vehicle to turn everybody onto it, then you can count yourself lucky. But, the one thing about going out and touring and building your own audience is nobody can ever take that away from you.
This episode is in part brought to you by the Blue Light Live here in Lubbock, Texas. While Blue Light is still closed due to the pandemic, there is a way to help A, support Blue Light, and B, get a sense of that normalcy by visiting bluelightlubbock.com, clicking on the merch tab, and getting some koozies, a vast array of t-shirts and caps, and yes, even a Blue Light flag. While it is such a bummer that live music is still on hold right now, I'm telling you, by getting some Blue Light Live merch, you're going to feel better. It just feels better wearing a t-shirt and ball cap and helping support your favorite bar. Again, that's bluelightlubbock.com. Click on the merch tab, get some merch. All right, back to the episode. Yeah, I feel like that's such a, not only it goes back to that 10,000 hour thing, but it's also, it cuts the people who go, actually I want to go do something else. This isn't for me, and I think like the struggle of anything helps cut the people who weren't in it wholeheartedly.
Right. It's the rejection.
Yeah.
I went through a lot of musicians early on. I knew I was a lifer, I was going to do it. And I kind of had it figured out, when I was pretty young, because I always kept my bills smaller than what I was making. And I remember these guys that come in, they're like, I'm going to be an actor. I'm like, yeah, but you have a like $400 a month car payment and you live in a nice house. How, like, the math doesn't work, dude.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting time right now because, and the musicians I talked to Ray Wiley Hubbard on the phone the other day, and he really made me laugh. I said, how you doing? He goes, oh, I'm just out here doing that old 3-card money hustle, playing the old shell game. And he was talking about like just doing what he could to, because we all had the rug pulled out from under us,
Yeah. It's such a weird time right now because it's, everything's been put on pause, but also not put on pause. Like, no one's, none of the bills have been put on pause, really. None of the, like the life stuff like that. None of the adult stuff has been put on pause. Even though we're all supposed to be, so it's one thing I wanted to go back to is like, you're talking about, like, it feels like, back then and, mid 90s to even in the early 2000s, when you went to go find something, when you liked something, you had to go out and like actually dig for it. You had to go find it, whether it was a movie that you liked or a book or a record or an artist. And now it's like at your fingertips. You know what I mean? And I think like so much of that working for it, so much of the having to go find it made you cherish things a lot more.
Oh, dude. Well, so when I left Beaumont, Texas, when I was a kid, I started a little rockabilly band. And nobody in Texas had rockabilly bands. Sure, there was a couple in Austin. There was like Two Hoots and a Holler and the Leroy Brothers, and they were all older than me. But they just played around Austin. I mean, they would go to Europe, play a festival every once in a while. But there was a band, there was a band called High Noon that actually turned into a really big rockabilly band. And there wasn't that many bands doing it. There was only a few of us. And I did it because I was a hot dog guitar player. And for me, I didn't have to have a steel player. I could have a 3-piece band. I could play as much guitar as I wanted with this genre of music. Mm-hmm. And people could dance to it if they wanted to, So we were obsessive record collectors. Like, I have so many records, it blows people's mind. Like, I have to keep them in storage, in like air-conditioned storage, because they won't all fit in my house. But I used to go out and then out of that rockabilly scene, I really got into country music early because my grandparents would play. I'd heard it, growing up my whole life from Beaumont, man. It was everybody's big country town, a lot of country music there. And, but, I I met Clifford Antone when I was a kid, who owned Antone's Blues Club, home of the blues, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He discovered Stevie Ray and the Thunderbirds and all those kind of people. And so I got into collecting blues records and all kinds of stuff. But, you know, now, I mean, my son can just literally go on iTunes and cherry pick the most obscure stuff that we would look for years. And we would be bin diving, dude. We would be like going through bins of records. And I can remember too, like, you know, I'm in this rockabilly band. I can remember like I would buy these 70s country records. They'd be like, oh man, what are you doing that? That's, you know, what? Well, I'm like, dude, this is cool. This is, you know, now it's all here. You know what I mean? Everybody's outlaw country. And, you know, I don't know, man. That's, you know, there's a lot of that stuff that it just doesn't go down that way anymore. And that's fine, you know. And like I said, man, there's some new guys that are coming up who I really like, but I don't know. It was a hell of a lot cooler, man, when we couldn't jump on Google.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We really had to have our ear to the street and know what was going on to hear about gigs that were coming. You know, I mean, it was very punk rock, very kind of street shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It feels like so much of like right now, you're glued to your phone in so many ways, where back then it felt like you had to be more aware, more in the moment to know things. Cause like, I mean, even I graduated high school in 2005 and it still felt like that, like that then, where I missed so many shows here because I wasn't being aware, you know what I mean? And then of course you do catch those shows and then you're able to brag to your buddies like, hey, you missed that great fucking show with, you weren't there, you know, like that kind of stuff. I still love doing the record crate diving, digging through records. There's a couple of records I still have that, on my wish list that I'm like, I'm finding them in the wild. I'm not gonna order them on eBay or
Argentine
like
file.
Yeah, I think like whenever the crate digging aspect, you also have that story whenever you find the record. Like I can point to so many times like, oh, I remember exactly where I was when I found this record finally. You know, like there's like that part of it too.
I don't really do it anymore. I mean, I still have I had a buddy of mine in Los Angeles named Deke Dickerson, who's this amazing guitar player, but he was like doing it yesterday in like the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And you know, he probably walked out with 100 records.
Yeah.
And he still does it, you know. You know, dude, I'm not going to do that now. I mean, you know, so anyway, if I want to hear an obscure Western swing Texas top hands record, I could probably go online and find it.
Yeah.
But we had to do it then, and it really sure did make you love everything a lot more. That's for sure.
Yeah. You mentioned Joe Ely earlier. Joe obviously, like back in the day, he was kind of very much he could play honky tonk country music, but then he also, you know, toured with the Clash.
Sure.
You have very much a similar kind of playing, you know, the old rockabilly, playing old country, but then obviously playing with guys like X.
Right.
What, you know, like what was that like playing with those guys?
Well, it's interesting you bring up Joe Ely. I have this new radio show on Gimme Country. It's Gimme Country. Mm-hmm. And if you go to your phone app store, you can download it for free. And they have a Jesse Dayton station. It's like 24 hours. And then my show airs on Gimme Country every Wednesday. But I just had Joe Ely on the show. And, I was getting all kinds, like, what was it like? And he's like, well, we went to these Western stores in Lubbock, and Joe Strummer bought all these square dance bolo ties. And then I took them when we went to El Paso, they wanted to go to El Paso because of the Marty Robbins song. And so I took them across the border to Juarez. And, dude, it's some pretty romantic shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on today. Maybe you jump on some site on your app and you met your buddy and wherever, but this was like really like, early cool shit. And for me, for a long time, people would always be like, well, I don't see, how you could be into George Jones and be into the Clash or, everything when I was younger, it was very like scenes dominated everything. Everything was, now, people your age, man, you just cherry pick everything. Your playlist is all over the place.
Right.
But my playlist was all over the place too back then too. But I would always run into the guardians of the scene, traditionalists, and
gatekeepers.
Yeah, the gatekeepers who don't really matter anymore. But it was the same way. I mean, like, they were a lot, older than I was. But we did a whole U.S. tour. Billy Zoom had got, diagnosed with cancer, and he had to go into immediate treatment. And he couldn't do the tour, so it was me and John Doe, Exene, and DJ Bonebreak. And I had to learn all of Billy's stuff and play it. And it was a lot of fun. The music was great. And I really enjoyed it, man. It was like running away with the circus,
Right. Yeah. A lot of people don't know, but, John Doe, he was in Pure Country. And
sure.
I'm always like, I always bring up that as like, hey, I mean, like, you can be a punk rock guy and be in a George Strait movie.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. I mean, he was in Roadhouse and Boogie Nights and a bunch of stuff. Yeah, John's a great actor. John was in my film. That's how I met John.
Mm-hmm.
I actually sold one of my scripts, and the producer said, look, we really can't afford a great director. Do you want to direct this thing? And I was like, well, I've only directed a few music videos. But I said, if you get the money, yeah, I do. So I had been in this Rob Zombie movie with Malcolm McDowell, who from Clockwork Orange, and he's been in a million things. And they got Malcolm McDowell to attach to the script. So as soon as we got that, we got the money for the movie. So I had this part that I had written for the script, about this burlesque club owner in New Orleans. And I was going to get Mike Ness from Social Distortion, because I wanted a kind of a hard guy with a bunch of tattoos. It wasn't a lot of lines. It was more vibe. And anyway, Mike couldn't do it. Mike was on tour and whatever was going on. It didn't, So I ended up getting John Doe. And that's how I met John Doe, is he played the part of this character in my movie, and he came in, nailed it, and we became friends. And he said, hey, you want to sit in with me? And I was like, of course. And that's how it started.
Yeah. You mentioned music videos. I was going through different music videos earlier, and you have this little part in Hayes Carl's She Left Me for Jesus, and I completely forgot about that music video. That is such a I forgot there was like shows like that.
Yeah.
Dude. Busting up the cheaters.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, She Left Me for Jesus by Hayes Carl. Check it out on YouTube. It's well worth the rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned the Gimme Country stuff. I was going to ask about that. you've had, obviously, you mentioned Joe. You've had people like Jamie Wyatt on as well. What do you do to prepare for your conversations with these people? Is there anything that you?
I mean, I do. I usually do prepare. I mean, I don't want to be too prepared because I don't want it to be too rigid.
Right.
Because we might end up going somewhere that I never realized, and I kind of want, they might have something they want to talk about that I'm not thinking about, and I don't like to control people or steer the concept unless they're just rambling about ridiculous shit, which rarely, I mean, that doesn't really happen. That's never really happened for me, but I started the Gimme Country radio show a year ago. I can do it from my house or from tour or wherever. And it did really good, man. And they ended up saying, hey, do you want your own station? And then that way you can still have your Wednesday show. It's 4 p.m. Central Time here in Texas. And that'll air on the main Gimme Country station. And then we'll play all your back archives on your Jesse Dayton channel. And then all the songs that you've curated, which is about 75, 80% country music. And then the rest of it's like just any and everything you can imagine. Mm-hmm. I mean, everything from songwriters to Jamaican music to Cajun music to soul music to rockabilly to punk to old school hard rock to, I mean, you name it, man. I'll play 3 Guy Clark songs in a row and then, play a song by The Clash.
Right.
Whatever the hell I want. So, and it's awesome, man. It's a lot of fun. It's actually been helping me like not lose my mind during this whole pandemic thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always, I feel like people have been finding these different outlets during this time to, especially on the artist side, doing other things that, other than even songwriting. Obviously you mentioned you've been working so hard on the book, doing this, but like other people I've talked with have talked about, even stuff from gardening to painting, and it all kind of helps with the artistic process. I think it all works.
I think that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I get up in the morning and go trail running, I hadn't even been drinking that much this year. I think I've drank like 3 times literally in the last 7 months. And just because I had such a good year last year, I was like, okay, man, I need to get in really good shape. Rein my diet, rein my cold beer intake in a little bit. I never had any trouble. I'm fine. I never had any, never had any of the classic signs. I don't really have the ism in my family, so I'm lucky. But I was like, hell, man, you never really done it. So I started trail running, and I'm way into it. And in order to trail run in Texas in the summertime, you got to get up early.
Yeah.
So I've been going to bed like an old man, dude, just like early as hell. Because you'll die if you run out in the heat. I don't care if you're 22 and long distance runner, man. You cannot run in triple digits.
Right.
Especially long, like yesterday I did 7.4 miles. And, but dude, there's something about being out in the woods, out in the middle of nowhere, and that you'll get inspiration that you will not get when your feet are on concrete and, there's no trees around, and, it's a completely different feeling. So I'm really into that right now. And it's like my mind, every time I do it, my mind's like, thank you so much for just, getting me offline, away from people and away from all the bullshit,
Right. At what point did you go, oh, I got to get the proper shoes?
Oh, it's a good question, man. That's a good question. It was probably about 3 weeks into it. But my wife is like a real athlete.
Okay.
Like I don't live with somebody who just works out a lot. I live with a freak show athlete who's like, I mean, she's beating her time and she's done all these marathons and Ultramans, and she's, you know, she rides 150 miles a week on her bike, and she runs and all that kind of stuff. So I got it kind of easy in terms of having mental support.
Right.
But yeah, man, she got me those new, what are they called? Boken or Hoboken or I forgot the name of the shoes. They're like unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something funny. I've never in my life ever walked out of my hotel room on tour with anything other than some cool custom cowboy boots or my old broken motorcycle boots or something with just some real style. And I got those boots and I got those shoes and I was in New York City and I was like, dude, if we're walking around New York City, I'm putting on these shoes. And everybody, all the band guys and the crew guys were like, oh, like, check him out, man. He's like, he's turned it into Willie. He's got his running shoes on. I was like, yeah, man, this is like the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
My feet felt amazing.
Yeah. That's funny, man. Like when you go into something else.
They're called Hokas.
Hokas.
Hoka, Hoka 1.
Yeah.
And if you look them up online, they're literally the best running shoe in the world.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Because I know, like, once you start taking up something that you've not really done that much of, then you go, oh, you know what? I don't have the proper equipment. I need to get fitted for something. And I figured you got some really good shoes at some point.
I got some kick-ass shoes. And just so you know, as a longtime motorcycle enthusiast, owner, rider, the whole thing, they're just like tires, dude. You got to get new ones every 3 months. Yeah. Because it depends on how much you run. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the bottom of them, like, you know, I've talked to people and I was like, hey man, you need to, your treads are blown out, dude. It's a whole thing, but it keeps me lean, and more than anything, it just keeps me from going nuts. It's more for my mind than it is anything. Yeah. Yeah. I think like so much of what's been going on lately, and obviously with the artistic process too, is it's getting in that mindset. I think people think that so often y'all just sit down and just write a song and boom, an hour later there's a song. Now, granted that happens, but so much more of it is getting into that mindset, and being, even if it means going out and doing other things, getting to that mindset, that proper mindset to find whatever you're meaning to say. That's so much of the work too, or the process. Absolutely, man. And, you know, it's, you know, another thing for me is, as being somebody who's been a side guy a bunch, I see people who get super protective of what it is that made them endearing to people, and I get that, but they end up not taking any chances, and they get super comfortable, and they end up repeating themselves, mm-hmm. and they end up pandering. Right. Really out of fear. I, you know, that's the thing I don't want to do. But, you know, I think it's important too, like, you have to make some kind of moves to where, you know, I'm by no means like a wealthy guy. I'm not like set for life or anything, but I did do a few things with the soundtrack and the movie thing that like was enough to put away to where I can actually say, no, I don't want to do that. You know, I know it's good money and it, you know, whatever, but I don't want to do that. I could say no. And, you know, it's kind of important, like at some point to be able to say, like, that's true freedom.
Right.
You know, to say, no, I don't want to do that gig. I know it pays a lot of money and whatever, but it just doesn't feel right. Or, you know, this guy wants me to do this song and it's some marketing guy. He's not cool and doesn't, you know, like, and so there's a real fine, you know, high wire walking act that you do between protecting the brand and being yourself, protecting your integrity, but also, like, you know, not just doing the same shit over and over and over because you know that people like peanut butter sandwiches, so you're going to make another peanut butter sandwich.
Right.
And, you know, I've gotten to play with some guys that I never thought that I'd get to play with. And I got to play with Lee Scratch Perry in January. And Lee Scratch Perry produced Bob Marley and Peter Tosh. And, like, he's OG in his late 70s, you know, Jamaican music legend. And, you know, just stuff like that makes me, like, super appreciative that I'm not, like, you know, this one trick Johnny guy who does this thing. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. There's obviously so many artists where you go, yeah, I got that one record of theirs, and that's the only record. I only need to get one record because even though they got 12 records, I got their record. You know what I mean? It's so important. What I think, like, the part where I love about some artists is that you can feel that they've grown with you or they've matured. And those are always the bands I feel that people go back and go, that's why that's my favorite band. That's why my favorite band is whoever at 20 and my favorite band at 33, you know?
Yeah.
So whatever the case is.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's, I mean, you obviously don't want to, you know, just totally ruin your career and do some, you know, ridiculous record. But all my favorite bands, especially, you know, like, if you listen to the Rolling Stones, you know, you listen to, like, they just did it all, man. They had country songs, they had reggae songs, they had blues songs, they had disco songs, they had folk songs, they had, I mean, really just everything.
Yeah.
But it all sounded like the Stones.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing, man. To me, that's exciting, you know, like, it's like, I don't know how they're going to like this, but let's check it out, you know? And this is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's been real great talking with you today.
Hey, thanks so much, man. Thanks for having me.
Okay, folks, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out Jesse Dayton's Gulf Coast Sessions. Check out our buddies over at Desert Door and the Blue Light Live here in Lubbock, Texas. All right, I'll see you all later this week for more new slang.